When people talk about strange cars, they usually mean something with odd styling or unusual engineering. But every once in a while, a vehicle appears that makes you stop, stare, and wonder if someone built it after drinking 3 cups of coffee and deciding that every normal car design rule should be thrown out the window. One of the most unusual examples ever created is the Sir Vival, a bizarre experimental automobile built in 1958 by an American engineer named Walter C. Jerome. At first glance, the Sir Vival looks almost like 2 different vehicles awkwardly fused together. The front resembles a blunt-nosed machine with a single central headlight and a grille that looks like it came from a science fiction comic book. The rear section appears more like a rounded passenger cabin. And then there is the most striking feature of all. The driver sits high above the car in a glass observation turret, almost like the commander of a submarine. It looks strange today, and it looked even stranger in the late 1950s. But despite its unusual appearance, this car was not built for attention or style. It was built for safety, decades before modern automotive safety standards became common. Walter C. Jerome believed that traditional car design was fundamentally dangerous. In most cars of the 1940s and 1950s, the engine sat directly in front of the driver and passengers. In a serious collision, that heavy engine block could be pushed straight into the passenger compartment. Jerome wanted to eliminate that danger completely. His idea was radical: split the car into 2 separate sections connected by a central articulated joint. The front section would contain the engine and front wheels, while the rear section would hold the passengers. In a crash, the 2 halves could move independently, helping absorb energy and reducing the chances of the engine being forced into the cabin. To build his experimental machine, Jerome used a heavily modified chassis from a Hudson Commodore, a large American automobile known for its smooth engines and solid engineering. Under the front hood of the Sir Vival was a Hudson straight-8 engine with a displacement of 254.4 cubic inches, producing approximately 128 horsepower. This inline 8-cylinder engine was known for its smooth operation, which made it a logical choice for an experimental vehicle. The car used a conventional manual transmission and rear-wheel drive system taken from the Hudson platform. One of the most fascinating aspects of the Sir Vival was the way it steered. Instead of a rigid single body, the car had 2 separate sections connected by a heavy central hinge. When the driver turned the steering wheel, the front section of the vehicle pivoted relative to the rear section. In other words, the car actually bent in the middle while turning. This articulated design is similar to the way some modern articulated buses or heavy construction machines steer today. Jerome believed this system would improve crash safety and reduce the transfer of impact forces to the passenger area. The driver's position was another feature that made the Sir Vival instantly recognizable. Rather than sitting inside the main body of the car, the driver occupied a raised turret mounted above the passenger compartment. From this elevated position, the driver had an almost panoramic view of the road, something Jerome believed would help prevent accidents in the first place. Being several feet above the rest of the vehicle allowed the driver to see traffic and obstacles far more easily than drivers in conventional cars. Of course, some observers joked that it looked like the driver was piloting a small spaceship rather than driving a car. The windshield system was just as unusual as everything else about the vehicle. Instead of traditional windshield wipers, Jerome designed a rotating cylindrical glass window. The glass slowly rotated while special cleaning pads wiped away rain and dirt. It was a creative idea, although one can imagine that repairing it might have required the patience of a watchmaker. Despite its futuristic thinking, the Sir Vival still relied on fairly conventional suspension components. Because the car was based on a Hudson chassis, it used an independent front suspension with coil springs, while the rear utilized a solid axle with leaf springs. These components were proven and durable, which made sense for a one-off experimental vehicle. In terms of performance, the Sir Vival was not built as a speed machine. Based on the capabilities of the Hudson drivetrain, historians estimate that its top speed would have been somewhere around 90 to 100 miles per hour, which was perfectly respectable for a large American car of that era. The vehicle's length was roughly 200 inches, with a wheelbase of about 124 inches, making it comparable in size to other full-size American automobiles of the late 1940s and 50s. But what truly made the Sir Vival remarkable was how far ahead of its time its safety ideas were. Jerome included features that would not become standard in automobiles until decades later. The car had seat belts, padded interior surfaces designed to reduce injury during impacts, and structural elements intended to protect passengers during a rollover. The separated front section was meant to absorb crash energy before it could reach the cabin. In many ways, Jerome was thinking about the same safety principles that modern engineers use today when designing crumple zones and reinforced passenger compartments. Jerome spent nearly a decade developing and building the Sir Vival. It was a massive personal project requiring thousands of hours of design, fabrication, and experimentation. When the car was finally completed in 1958, it attracted significant attention from the media. In fact, the Sir Vival even appeared on the cover of Mechanics Illustrated magazine, where readers were introduced to Jerome's unusual vision of a safer automobile. Public reaction, however, was mixed. Some people admired the creativity and forward-thinking engineering behind the project. Others simply could not get past its strange appearance. Critics joked that the car looked like a cross between a vacuum cleaner, a submarine, and something from a science fiction movie. To be fair, they were not entirely wrong. Even today, the Sir Vival remains one of the most visually unusual cars ever built. Despite the attention it received, the Sir Vival never entered production. The automotive industry of the 1950s was focused heavily on style, chrome, and powerful engines rather than experimental safety concepts. Jerome's ideas were simply too unconventional for major manufacturers to adopt at the time. Nevertheless, his work stands as an important example of early automotive safety thinking. Today, the Sir Vival is remembered not just as an odd curiosity, but as a bold engineering experiment. It reminds us that innovation sometimes looks strange at first, and that progress often begins with ideas that challenge conventional thinking. Walter Jerome may not have changed the direction of the automotive industry overnight, but his vision anticipated many safety concepts that would later become standard in cars around the world. And honestly, if you ever saw a Sir Vival driving down the street today, you would probably do exactly what people did back in 1958. Stare for a moment, smile, and wonder what kind of imagination it took to build something so completely different. If you enjoy discovering unusual and forgotten vehicles like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There are many more incredible automotive stories ahead, and some of them are even stranger than this one.